好的，好的。While we are waiting, maybe can I ask a question?
Sure, that is why we start a little earlier, so that we can start by questions and carry on into the time allotted to us. Please,
Yeah.
please feel free to ask questions.
So,
I am
yeah,
glad that people ask, because if we learn something, it is by asking, no?
yeah, yeah. So it is said that the phenomena is rising and stay and disappear, ceasing. What my experience is that actually, if we say that the phenomena appear, arising and stay and pass away, it means our mind is stay. The mind is stay because what I observe is that the phenomena is rising every moment. So there is no rising and there is no passing away.
Actually, now you are using more Western way of thinking. That which does not arise and does not pass away, and that which arises and passes away, they exist together. And that is why it's so important to understand the non-dualistic approach. They must exist together so that we get rid of contradictions. The movement is because of contradictions. When there are no contradictions, there is no movement. There has to be negative poles. They have to be positive poles so that electricity can go. There has to be yin and yang so that the phenomena appear. This is part of the great Chinese philosophy, which is very useful. So actually, this Tai Chi, this emptiness, and the phenomena, they appear at the same time. Only because we are used to the thinking that when there is no when there is A, there cannot be at the same time B. When there is B, there cannot be at the same time A. The Chinese philosophy has a different view. We have the Qi, we have the essence, and we have the Xiang. We have the appearance. And the essence and appearance, they appear at the same time. Just like ignorance and wisdom appear at the same time. When we don't have wisdom, we don't see ignorance. When we don't have ignorance, we don't see any wisdom. So for this very reason also we have to learn, and this is not easy to do. We have to learn to see this arising and passing away and non-arising and non-passing away as being one reality, not two different realities. This is the, in a way, the weakness of the Theravada. They try to see nirvana and samsara as two different realities, which definitely brings them into difficulties. Because when you make a pattern of realities, then a different person can do a different pattern. And when you believe your pattern is the real one and the other pattern is wrong, so you have problem. The different patterns all work if you only see them in the picture of the whole. When you don't see them in the picture of the whole, so the relativity is not conducive to liberating wisdom, because relativity is by opposites. That's why Buddha explains the dependent origination starting with ignorance. We see opposites, but opposites, they are there based on our believing that this xiang, this form, is really there. But the form is not there separated from the mind which perceives the form. There cannot be xiang, there cannot be neng yuan without the so yuan. Impossible. There is no such situation. So we have learned that the movement of the mind is not the intrinsic nature of the mind, but it is introduced by what we have called the karmic consciousness. Ye, shi. Right? You remember? The ye, shi makes the shin move. But the very nature of shin, of the mind, is not to move. The very nature of mind is to see the reality as a whole. That is why in this tradition, in the Yogacara, the realization of the true mind is realization of the Ta Jing Zhi Hui, the wisdom of the great mirror. Unless we have the wisdom of the great mirror, then we don't see that actually the beings and the Buddhas, they have the same nature. They are not different as far as nature is concerned. That is the comparison we have explained. All vessels are made of clay, but all vessels are different, because this clay, you can make pots, you can make jars and so on, many, many things, immeasurable many things you can make of the same substance. But in Chinese philosophy, also in non-dualistic philosophy, the Qi and Xiang, they are the same. You cannot separate the Qi and the Xiang. You cannot separate the essence and the picture or image or perception. The perception of the form is not separated from the mind, which is, so to say, the base. And that mind, which is a base, that mind is a base because it is empty of innate content. If the mind, which is a base, had some innate content which you have, which you can grasp, which you can define, which you can speak about, then you always remain in opposites. And as long as you remain in opposites, then you will always, your thinking, rather than liberate you, will limit you. Now, in order not to make thinking be limited, you have to understand first intellectually by the wisdom from hearing, then also by wisdom from contemplation, wen suo chen zhi hui, se suo chen zhi hui, and then you can meditate effectively on reality being one. Actually, reality always is one, because we don't see the base of reality. We imagine reality to be many. So what we have learned the last week, and this is very important to keep in mind, go through it again and again and again. What we learned the last week is the samadhi of suchness. Genru Sanmei. Genru Sanmei, the samadhi of suchness, is based on Yin Sanmei or I Xing Sanmei, the samadhi of one mind or samadhi of one formation. So what you want to do in order to understand that when you see forms, you are not separated from emptiness, and when you see emptiness, you are not separated from forms. What you need to do is, as we have explained last week, you have to do the uniting the phenomena with emptiness. This is, without uniting the phenomena with emptiness, you have a limited wisdom, small wisdom. It is called in the Yogacara and the Madhyamika, it is called Xiao Zhihui, the small wisdom. In order to realize true realization, no matter whether as a disciple or as a bodhisattva, you have to see things from the point of view of great wisdom. The great wisdom does not belong to differentiation. The great wisdom belongs to that which integrating differentiation into that which cannot be differentiated. And in Buddhism, that which cannot be differentiated, that is called nirvana. So without the nirvana wisdom, we cannot actually understand our worldly experience. This is not what the disciples learn. This is what we learn when we learn the Bodhisattva way. Bodhisattva way is the way based on non-dualistic wisdom. This non-dualistic wisdom is called the perfection of wisdom, pragya paramita. This perfection of wisdom, as the Diamond Sutra teaches, the perfection of wisdom is the mother of all the virtues, of all the perfection. If the perfection of wisdom does not work, the true understanding of our experience in this world also cannot work. So we can only understand our experience in the world truly when we have the wisdom which goes beyond differentiation. Without the wisdom which is stuck in differentiation, this wisdom which is stuck in differentiation, we can only understand limited wisdom. But true wisdom is connected to the dimension which is not limited. If there is not this non-limited direction, then non-limited dimension, then mind has no true direction that we have learned. Unless we meditate on suchness, then instead of going east, we go west. The east is always there, but we go west, and because we go west, therefore our we don't see that the sun has to come from the east to go to the west. So the problem of being limited is the problem of not understanding the limitation of thinking. How to get rid of limitations of thinking. This is we have learned the last lesson. To transcend the limitation of thinking, we have to practice the one moment realization, one moment awareness. Awareness and body, they are synonym. Awareness and vipassana also become synonym. We can only have vipassana when we have awareness. And for a bodhisattva, awareness is the awareness of the whole. The limited awareness is only skillful means. But the sutras of the perfect wisdom teaches that if the bodhisattva, not a disciple, if a bodhisattva holds to some object, holds to some xiang, holds to some image, holds to some perception, holds to some feeling, that bodhisattva has no skillful means. Wu fan pian. Holding to image means wu fan pian. No skillful means to realize the perfect realization, which must be non-dualistic. As long as the conflicts appear in our realization, then our realization is, as Lotus Sutra teaches, which is kind of base for Mahayana understanding. The Lotus Sutra teaches that all other realizations that we may have are only skillful means to get the perfect realization, which must be non-dualistic. No matter whether we believe the Dharma of the disciples or the Dharma of bodhisattvas or any other Dharma, the true Dharma must be non-dualistic. And how to get to non-dualistic Dharma? Understanding, this is very well explained in Yogacara, understanding the process of thinking. Because we don't understand the process of thinking, therefore we take the limited wisdom, skillful means for being the perfect wisdom. But limited wisdom always remain limited wisdom unless it adopts the perspective of non-dualism. That is according to the teachings of the teachers of the Bodhisattva path, it is only non-dualistic approach which can really liberate the mind. The dualistic approach can only be skillful means, but it can never be the skillful means we practice in order to accomplish something. But the non-dualistic view is that there is nothing to accomplish. The Fampian of non-dualistic wisdom is Wu Suota Pukata it is impossible to attain something. Aprapti, it's called in Sanskrit. Aprapti, because the nirvana is aprapya. It has not been created. It is Wu Wei. And that which has not been created, which is Wu Wei, it cannot be reached. If you reach it for a bodhisattva, you have no fampian, you have no skillful means. And if you have no skillful means, you cannot understand the true meaning of the Dharma. So no matter what Dharma you practice, for realization of the Dharma, you need the skillful means of non-reaching. And what is the skillful means of non-reaching? One thought does not reach the other thought. One Dharma does not reach the other Dharma. One moment does not reach the other moment. The continuity of the mind and the impermanence of the mind is not real. If it was real, then there would be no way to break through the boundaries. And the true body, the supreme body, Wushang body, is breaking through the boundaries. These boundaries are produced not by reality, because reality is non-dualistic. The boundaries are produced by thoughts. So in Buddhism, same principle for the disciples, same principle for bodhisattvas. The content of our experience is contained in the mind. The content of our experience, all the dharmas, all the phenomena are contained in the mind. Manomaya are led by the mind. Manoseta. So the task of the non-dualistic meditation is not only understand the impermanence and to turn away from impermanence, but understand impermanence in relation to that which is not impermanent. Just like we can understand perfect wisdom only in relation to non-wisdom. Just we can understand only light in relation to darkness. We can understand heart only in relation to softness. We can understand movement only in relation to tranquility. So the task of the meditator is to realize and contemplate the reality as being tranquility and movement at the same time. The mind in tranquility and in the movement, they are and remain and have always been one mind. They are not two different minds. That we have learned in the beginning of our scripture when we have understanding of one mind. We have understanding of the great Qi, great Xiang, Da Ti, Da Xiang, Da Yong. Understanding of the great essence, great characteristics. Essence and characteristics cannot be separated. And when we understand essence and characteristics as being one reality, then also we have the great function of the mind. Great function of the mind is to go beyond attachment, and attachment is to differentiations. And we attach to differentiations because of clinging. If there is no clinging, there is no grasping for differentiations. So Buddha explains the truth of end of suffering based on non-desire, non-greed, non-thirst. So our separation from reality is due to thirst, is due to grasping. Because of grasping, we are separated from the true reality, which is always one, whether we like it or not. This reality, true reality, was always one. And in the one reality, there is no contradiction between movement and silence. So the Buddhist training starts with understanding silence of the mind, understanding the tranquility. The meditation on tranquility we have explained last week is called shamatha. From Sanskrit to sham, which means to appease, teaching. First, we have to be teaching, then we can quan, then we can observe. If we are not in a silence, then what we observe is only our identifications with thoughts. But this identification with thoughts has to be broken. So, in the non-dualistic meditation, you start by understanding how to break this latent power of thoughts to bind us. So, and that we can only understand when we see that this continuity is not real. The relations are not real. That's why Buddha explains the dependent origination based on ignorance, right? Not on wisdom. Because of ignorance, in the past, we were accumulating karma. Now, because of ignorance, again, we are accumulating karma. And in the future, we will again accumulate karma. As long as we don't penetrate the illusionary nature of the karmic consciousness. This is all what this treatise we have been discussing is speaking about. This karmic consciousness is the root of ignorance. And the real forms that we want to grasp is the secondary ignorance. The root ignorance produces secondary ignorance. And due to these two kinds of ignorances, we find ourselves without wanting, nobody wants. Without wanting, we find ourselves in the state of dukkha, unsatisfactory state, contradictory state, which produces contradictory emotions, contradictory perceptions, always fighting. So, how to understand how to get rid of this vicious circle? Now, the Yogacara has a very good, wonderful explanations. We have to understand how we actually think, how we perceive. First we perceive, then we think. First we perceive, then we feel. Actually, this process is going at the same time, but we have to divide it in order to understand how it works. So first there appear, when we think something, when we feel something, when we think something, first appears xiang. Xiang means image, means a sign of an object, means an object, means arising many, many meanings. A wonderful word in Chinese, very difficult to translate into any other language. The tree and the eye, when we look at the Chinese character. What means a tree and the eye? We see something and we believe it is really there. There is this famous Kum'an in Chinese tradition. What is the meaning of Bodhidharma's coming to China? The oak tree in the garden. What is oak tree in the garden? Image. But for a Zen master, it's just image. No need to analyze it by dividing. It is just there. So first there is an image, and to image to be there, we don't need to think. Now try to see by yourself. We have an image. Do we need to think about it? Is it necessary to think about the image? When we think about the image, we grasp it by names. So first there is Xiang, then there is Ming. Then, because there is Ming in the Xiang, so we believe that this tree in the garden and the whole is two different things. So we believe these differences we make corresponds to reality. The differences are real in reality because our thinking makes them real, not because they are real. Of course, the tree is different from the house. That is for sure. But the tree and the house exist at the same time. Because I pay attention to the tree, I don't see the house. Because I pay attention to the house, I don't see the tree. But the tree and the house, they exist together. So the process of thinking starts by perception. And perception starts by attention. If we don't make attention, we don't have perception of any particular thing as opposed to other things. That only happens when we pay attention to that thing. That's why in Sanskrit, in Chinese also, the perception is called zuo-yi, make something in the mind. We make something in the mind, so the mind moves. Don't make anything in the mind, so the mind does not move. And it moves because it identifies with that image. When it identifies with that image, it separates it from the whole. When it separates it from the whole, then we believe that our differentiation corresponds to the real state of things. But in the real state of things, there is no real separation. If there is a real separation in the state of the things, then the things cannot make any sense, because they appear and disappear only when there is something which make them one whole. And that's something which makes them one whole, that is called emptiness. Emptiness means zero. When there is zero, then they are things that appear, numbers or forms or feelings or perceptions, but they appear on the background of the whole. And that whole in Buddhist tradition, also in Chinese tradition, has to be something which by itself has no definite form. If it has definite form, then it cannot reflect other forms. It must not have definite form to reflect other forms. This should be very logical, but we can understand it, but we have to make it part of our experience. Otherwise, it is just another information, that's all. And Buddha never wanted this to be just information. He wanted it to be a part of our experience. So when we separate, what we actually separate is whole. And this whole is non-dualistic whole is called Genru, the real such. So even while separating, we have to see the real such, the real emptiness, from which the subject and object ideas arise. They arise because the mind moves, and the mind has not the nature of moving because it does not contain any definite form. If it has definite form, we cannot think. We can think and change thinking because the mind does not have any definite form. We can feel and change feeling because the mind has no any different form. We can perceive and change perception, because the mind has not any definite form. And in that non-definite form appear forms, but they appear also due to suchness. If there was not suchness, nothing would appear. So that which appear on the base of suchness cannot leave suchness. It leaves suchness due to our ignorance. So what is the manifestation of our ignorance? It is called in Buddhism, very wonderful word, prapancha. Chinese translation, Shilun. Shilun means to enjoy the multiplication of our perception based on desire. It is not just one tree in the garden. It is a tree in the garden, which is an oak tree, which is different from other trees, and which is in the garden, which is so and should be so, and so on and so on. This is all right. This is natural. But this is natural only when we know natural. So we start learning non-dualistic meditation, at least in the Chinese version of it, by learning what is natural. Natural actually is nirvana. The nirvana is the supreme dharma. It is a supreme dharma because everything fits into it. What does not fit into nirvana cannot exist. Because nirvana is empty of content, and being empty of content is also participating in the creation of the content. So this is a difference between the so-called Mahayana and non-Mahayana. The Mahayana is based on the idea that this karmic consciousness can be creative. This karmic consciousness can create pure worlds, and these pure worlds can guide us into the true suchness. And this creativity of the karmic consciousness is also the creativity of subject and object, because the subject and object do not appear without the karmic consciousness. This creativity consciousness creates the so-called pure land. Mahayana is the philosophy of the pure land. This pure land is created by the pure karmic consciousness. The pure karmic consciousness can only exist on the base of the perfection of wisdom. If we don't have the perfection of wisdom, this karmic consciousness will never be pure. And the perfection of wisdom is that the everything appears from one mind. And this one mind is not different from suchness, not different from Buddha nature, not different from Buddha body, not different from Dharma body, not different from the content of our experience. This is the non-dualistic understanding of meditation. So, last lesson we have learned, if I remember well, the samadhi of one moment. The samadhi of one moment contemplates the illusionary nature of everything that has continuity, of illusionary nature of everything that has relativity, because everything that is conditioned, everything that has relativity, everything that exists in movement, in arising and passing away, exists only in relation to that which does not arise and does not pass away. So the realization and the key to realization in our treatise that we have been discussing is the one mind. This one mind has actually no name, has no definite form, but it contains all names and all forms because it cannot be reached. We have learned that. It cannot be reached, it cannot be taught, it cannot be grasped, but unless we talk about it, unless we try to understand it, we will never surpass the grasping for our differentiations. So we have to talk about it, we have to contemplate it, but as our treatise explained in the beginning, with the knowledge that it is ungraspable, it is has no any form in it that can be grasped. Therefore, it is not subjected to arising and passing away. That is also quite understandable for us students of Chinese philosophy. Tao ke Tao Fei Chang Tao. Everybody knows whatever we can say is not part of that Tao, which is actually always here. Only we don't see it because we believe in reality of our own differentiations. So in order not to believe in the reality of our own differentiations, we have to see how they arise with awareness. With awareness means with body. We do not suppress the arising of the thoughts. We become fully aware of the arising of the thoughts. If we suppress the thoughts, then they will suppress us, because we are made of the thoughts. This is Buddhism. We don't need any God creator, because the world is made of the thoughts. It is contained in the thoughts. It is created by the thoughts. It is preceded by the thought. And the thought is one. The mind is one. And how it develops? Well, it develops because we have alaya or adana, or Shin, Chitta, which collects our previous experiences and which reproduces the world according to our previous experiences. Then because we have Chitta, in Chitta already is coded desire. If we don't have desire, we don't collect. We collect because we have desire. And what we collect is stored. Karma in Buddhism means samskara ayuhana. That means the accumulation of will formations. Right? Because we accumulate will formations, therefore we reproduce the world through already in our perception is included the memory of our previous accumulations. So immediately when we see the house or when we see the oak tree, we judge about this oak tree. As Zhuangzi explained, when we see a tree and start judging about the tree, we don't actually see the tree. Because we already see only from our point of view. So we already separated from the objective view. Objective view does not need our truth of our limited view. But again, it also in our limited view, the objective view is not separated. It is there, only we have to be aware of it. The objective view does not grasp. The objective view does not grasp. So that view which does not grasp is the right view in the non-dualistic tradition. And that thinking which does not grasp is the right thinking. Beginning of the middle path is the right view. Zhen Tian Zhen Si Wei. The right view and right thinking, right vitarka, right weighing in the mind, right contemplation. Now in this non-dualistic tradition, the right contemplation and right view and samadhi cannot be separated. We have learned it. If we separate them, we don't understand non-dualistic philosophy, non-dualistic practice, non-dualistic realization. So the right view is not only that everything is impermanent, impermanence is source of suffering, and that this source of suffering can have an end, and that there is a way to realize this end of suffering. But it also means that the real suffering comes from grasping to differentiation, grasping to shilun, to multiplying perceptions and feelings based on desire. So in the right view, if you really want to understand right view, you have to integrate the highest reality, which is not dualistic. And this higher reality will be integrated by the awareness of suchness. Without the awareness of suchness, no true differentiation, no true thinking, no true behavior, no true realization. So here we are, this Yi Nian San Mei, Yi Xin San Mei, Yi Xing San Mei, Po Je Polo Mi San Wei, San Mei, Genru San Mei, Samadhi of suchness, Samadhi of the perfection of wisdom, Samadhi of one moment, Samadhi of one mind. All these are just synonyms. In the Chinese tradition, it is also called the Lenyen San Mei, Surangama Samadhi. We have the Surangama Sutra, Surangama Samadhi. Surangama Samadhi, in Surangama Samadhi, also the movement and non-movement become one. That is why all samadhis are based on this Surangama Samadhi. Surangama means the coming of the heroes. And the hero is the bodhisattva. Another name for bodhisattva is a hero because he does not work for attaining something, but he works for the attainment of the non-dualistic peace belonging to all beings, not particular to one being, but belonging to all beings. That is called heroic samadhi. For heroic samadhi, you need heroic effort, you need heroic tolerance, you need heroic discipline, you need heroic giving, based precisely on this non-dualistic wisdom, on the perfection of wisdom. So with this, we can get slowly deeper understanding of what we have learned. And it is very important that we understand it. So in this heroic samadhi, as the sutras of perfect wisdom explain, the causes of movement are illusionary, appear like in a dream and disappear like in a dream. Their continuity is illusionary. It does not mean that it does not exist. This is precisely the work of this Mara, to make us believe in the truth of differentiations. To go beyond this way of Mara means to go beyond the power of differentiations. Differentiations are there, but they have no power to bind us to reality. That is bodhisattva. That is the heroic samadhi, Surangama Samadhi, Lenyen Sanmei, And in this Lendian Sanmei, the relativity is also illusionary. Illusionary can exist only in relation to the real. If there is no real, illusionary absolutely makes no sense. And that is the necessary understanding we need in order to practice the correctly bodhisattva way, non-dualistic way. So when we hold to anything, this holding is illusionary, is wang qu, illusionary grasping. The main problem of ignorance is not just not seeing impermanence, but to engage in illusionary grasping, believing that the object and subject of grasping are real. According to the teachings of the non-dualistic teachers, when we see this clearly, then the process of realization will be much faster because we get into the dimension beyond the time, dimension of real causes, real continuity, real relativity is a dimension within the time. But the dimension within the time can only exist in relation to the dimension which is not restricted to time. That is non-dualistic wisdom. Just like darkness can only exist in relation to light, wisdom only in relation to ignorance. So the real practice is understanding the Dharma Dhatu. Dharma Dhatu, Fa Jie, as Fa Xing, refers to all things. This Dharma Dhatu in beings is called the Forxing, the Buddha nature. When we see the Buddha nature, we also can understand the Dharma Dhatu, the Dharmata, the way the things really are. They arise and cease on the base of that which does not arise and does not cease. If there was not that which does not arise and does not cease, then the arising and the ceasing would be not meaningful. They are meaningful because there is this reality which does not arise and does not cease. This both reality, the created reality and non-created reality, they contain the whole of our experience. Unless we see them as a whole of our experience, inseparable, then our realization will be partial realization, not a complete realization. This is what the Mahayana scriptures want to convey us. Now, when we practice concentration, normally in the tradition of the disciples, the concentration is a discipline which we need to learn in order to learn wisdom. So first we learn concentration, then we learn wisdom. In the Mahayana tradition, we have to learn wisdom in order to learn concentration correctly, because we are in ignorance, because our wisdom has not ripened. So when our wisdom is ripening, it also automatically our concentration will ripen, because you cannot contemplate suchness without concentration. You cannot understand emptiness without concentration. The emptiness is a state of concentration. When you don't clutch any thought, any pictures, any uh, ideas in your mind, you are in the state of concentration. But it is not so easy. So the real concentration we have learned last lesson is when you don't clutch anything, breath, elements, anything at all, no object at all. That is the real concentration. For that, the conditioning is the same like traditional explained in yoga. You need correct bodily posture, asana. You need a place which is conducive to isolation. When you isolate the mind, you can isolate. When you isolate the body, you can isolate the mind. And according to the sutras of the supreme wisdom, Pragya Paramita, the practice of Pragya Paramita is nothing else but the practice of isolation, Viveka, Kali. To practice Pragya Paramita means to practice Kali. It does not say myself, Thomas Dhammadipa. It is the essence of the teachings of the perfection of wisdom. The perfection of wisdom is a state of isolation. How can we have a state of isolation? By understanding that reality is one. When you understand the reality is one, in one you cannot have two, in one you cannot have 3, 4, 5, 6. You can have 3, 4, 5, 6, many, only as a skillful means for understanding the one. And the one does not exist separately as the sutras of supreme wisdom teach. The one cannot exist, the oneness cannot exist separate from manifoldness, or how they call it in English. The two cannot exist separately. The same and difference, same exists only in regard to difference. Difference exists only in regard to sameness. Just like small exists only in regard to big. This, when we keep it in mind, we can transform our perception, we can transform our feelings based on the what is called Sambhoga Kaya, Pao Shen. What means Pao Shen? What means the body of enjoyment? We create in the mind. Which mind? Only in the mind which moves. In the mind which does not move, you cannot create anything. So you create in the karmic mind the reality and the shapes and the forms which do not separate, which lead you to the non-separation, which is the true form of realization. The non-separation can only exist in one mind. It cannot exist in outside. It can only exist inside. So the pure land, the pure forms also cannot exist outside. They can only exist inside. When we want to catch the pure forms outside, we will always be frustrated. But we can create pure forms inside, and these pure forms, if we make a heroic effort, these pure forms, pure land, there is only one land as far as Buddhism is concerned, which is the support of all lands, and that is a mind. So this pure land will become support of all the perceptions so that we don't allow these conflicting perceptions to remain a conflict. By awareness, this conflict disappears here and now. So how it disappears? Because we meditate on continuity as something illusionary. Continuity is something illusionary, but illusionary exists only in regard to that which is true, and the true exists only in regard which is illusionary. So this is what in our scriptures we have had. The base for the faith of Bodhisattva is Shin, the straight mind. Straight mind is contemplating suchness. Now, in a Mahayana tradition, the best way to contemplate suchness is contemplate the Buddha, because the Buddha lives in suchness. He is suchness. So by perception of Buddha, by feeling the Buddha, we contemplate suchness. This is a samadhi of Nian Fo, most popular samadhi in China. But actually, even all the tantric practices, even the Huayan, finally, in Huayan also, Samatha Bhadra, Pushyen Bosa, finally teaches the Nian Fo Samadhi. This is the supreme Samadhi. After all the wonderful lands the Sudhana has experienced, the Samatha Bhadra Pushyen Bosa teaches him the Samadhi of suchness, which is the Samadhi of recollecting the Buddha, Nian Fo San Mei. Nian Fo San Mei allows the meditator to see that this reality of the Buddha is the base of all samadhis, because it brings us to the beginning before the thought started separating. We have had it in our scripture. but most of us maybe have not understood it because we don't contemplate on it. To go to the Buddha is to go to the beginning of the thinking process. In the beginning of the thinking process, there was not any definitive form, there was not any definitive shape, there was not any definitive thought. That is why it can reveal all thoughts, all shapes, all forms. Because of that, it is the, as the scriptures explain, it is the mother of all samadhis. The samadhi of, just like the perfection of wisdom is the mother of all perfections, be it 6 or 10 or infinite, as our scripture says. So the samadhi of suchness is the mother of all other samadhis, including the 4 absorptions in the subtle forms, so 4 absorptions in the formless, which are very important, but only skillful means to attain the samadhi of suchness. Without the samadhi of suchness, they will not reveal that which we want to realize, and that is the one mind. Now, when we try very hard, so next passage is the Mara will try to prevent us from understanding the samadhi of suchness. In order for that, we have now this passage, Ru Tu Zuo Qi Qu Lai Jin Zhi, whatever posture we are, whether we are going or sitting, whatever we do, we have to be Nian Fang Bian. We have to remember, we have to think of our skillful means. What is a skillful means of non-dualistic samadhi? Non-attainment. The attainment make only sense on the ground of non-attainment. If there was not non-attainment, no attainment would have meaning. Just if there was no permanent, impermanence would have no meaning. If there was no nirvana, the samsara would have no meaning. Yet, the meaning we can only find through the skillful means. Without the skillful means, we will not find any meaning at all. Because precisely this true reality is whole. We are separated and we need whole to go beyond separation. So only when we have the skillful means, which is non-grasping, non-attaining, which is the mark of the true reality. So we have to practice the skillful means for a long time so that it stays in the mind. This is precisely what I have taught first we have to understand the non-dualistic approach, then we have to know the real meaning, and then we have to make it the inseparable part of our experience. That is called dharani, jo, fa jo. That means we have to hold it in the mind. How we hold it in the mind? In contemplating the state of Buddha. What is state of Buddha? Gatte, gatte, para gatte, para samgatte, bodhiswaha. We are all in the process of being gone. In the process of being gone to the other side. The other side is the perfect side. Together with all beings, together with the whole world, together with the whole universe. We are only gone together with the whole universe when we understand the whole universe as being the wholeness and we being the part of it. No, this is a base of Chinese philosophy. The earth and heaven and man, they are one, not different. So when we can hold it in the mind, make it a dharani, then we will adopt to the samadhi of suchness, samadhi of genru, samadhi of real that. And this samadhi of real that, because it has no continuity, it has no relativity, it has no real cause. This samadhi of suchness will automatically rid us of all the defiling factors which make our mind grasp. So even if we hold it for a short time, it will reform our way of seeing us and seeing the world. This is called kaiwu, satori. When we have kaiwu, even for a short time, without much continuity, it will reform our way of seeing us and seeing the world. So in this way, step by step, we adopt to the samadhi of suchness. Because seeing the suchness, seeing the emptiness is not a concept, it is a state of samadhi. That's why in the scripture we have the practice of concentration and practice of wisdom. They cannot be separated. We separate them in order to see them together. Just like we separate the Sila discipline, Samadhi discipline, and wisdom discipline to see them as being one whole. Only then we can understand the middle path. Here, the middle path is the Samadhi of suchness. That is a middle path. In this middle path, when concentration and wisdom are one whole, automatically all the bad influences are gone at that moment. They come again. That's why we have to make it dharani, fajo, so that it become parts of us. When it become parts of us, the Mara cannot reach us. The death does not reach us. Because there is no place for death in the samadhi of suchness. And if we practice this samadhi of suchness according to the teachings of the great teachers of non-dualistic meditation, then our realization will be much faster and we will strengthen our faith so that it becomes unshakable. Then we are anivarta, putve. We don't turn away from the perfect realization, which is non-dualistic. So this is the fastest way to abandon the karmic obstacles which we all have. But these karmic obstacles, of course, and how they appear and how to act so that we don't stay in them. Explain the following passages and let us read them next week, because what I have explained now is very important, and it seems some of us don't yet fully understand the implications of all that we have been learning. And it is so important to ask and to contemplate. Only then we can get some glimpses of the samadhi of suchness. And the samadhi of suchness is very, very difficult to understand. When I came to Japan, this is how I started my career as a monk. My teacher, Harada Sekei, was trying very hard to convince me that working in the garden and collecting, digging the turnips and so on is nothing but the state of samadhi. I was not convinced at all. That's why I went to Sri Lanka and learned all these different states of deep concentration and of the Vipassana based on it. But now, slowly, it took me a long time and many diversions and a lot of asking, among others, also Master Shenyan and some Tibetan teachers, to understand actually this true meaning of samadhi of suchness. So this is why it's so important to think about it and not make it just a concept, make it one's own experience. This is what the text tries to convince us. Don't make it a concept, make it your own experience. Just try what happens when you don't think. Okay, so that much for today. Next week we will make friend with Mara, the death. When we make friend with Mara, there will be nothing really to be much afraid of. So, and that is very important part of the practice. That's why the author took so many different ways to explain how Mara is going to encounter us when we practice samadhi of suchness. And when we practice samadhi of suchness, we will truly understand the vipassana. And when we truly practice vipassana, we will truly understand the samadhi of suchness. They are inseparable. Okay, so that much for today.
Thank you, 法师 for. So next week, how about next week?
So next week I will be here. I am now in the meditation center. So it may be also useful for the participants here. So next week I will be still here. No,
Next week will be 24.
24. I will be still here. 25 I'm finishing. So 24 we continue the same here in the dining hall. I'm sitting with all kinds of friends around, and so we then continue in the same dining room, and you in the same place where you are probably, or in other place. Now, due to technology, we are so free, but more technology, not necessarily more freedom of mind. We should use this technology to make it more accessible to freedom of mind. So in a way, we have great advantage and great disadvantage. We are subjected to technology, but we can also make technology the object of our freedom. But I'm not successful in it anyway. That's a different matter. Let's not talk about this. I am the most stupid as far as technology is concerned, but it may be very useful as far as memory is concerned. Because I don't rely so much on technology, I can maybe remember better. Okay,
Okay,
so
thank you, Pastor. Take care, Pastor. Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Pastor. Take care, Pastor.
yeah,
Thank you.
let us do the transference. 愿与这功德不计一切，我等一种在皆共成佛道。May the merits of today's Dharma spread to all beings so that we attain perfect realization. Okay. See you.
Oh, Pastor.
Thank you,
Okay,
Pastor.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Okay. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, all
Bye.
friends, for joining this Zoom.